The 2026 Mazda CX-5 is rolling in with fresh looks, new tech, and finally hybrid power on the horizon. But with the CX-50 already in the lineup, is Mazda's bestseller still the one to get, or has it lost its edge? Hello everyone, this is Sully from CarlandTV. It's time to hop in the front seat, because today I'm going to break down everything you need to know about the next-gen CX-5, from what's changing under the hood to why this update could make or break Mazda's top dog. Before I start, I would really appreciate it if you would push those buttons below. The subscribe button, the notification bell, all of them. This is not necessary, but those little clicks help a brother out. Plus, it pushes me to give you more valuable car-related content on your screen. Now buckle up and let's get back to the video. Now, I've driven a lot of crossovers that claim to be quote-unquote sporty, but the Mazda CX-5 has always felt like the real deal. Even when it was pushing a decade old, it still handled like it's premium and looked sharper than most in its class. But yeah, it's been due for a serious refresh. Now Mazda's rolling out the 2026 version with promises of a hybrid updated styling and that same Kodo design flair they've stuck with since day one. I've been keeping an eye on the spy shots, and if this plays out right, the CX-5 could be back on top. Of course, that's not just a light statement. When I first saw the camoed test mule out in Germany, I could tell right away Mazda wasn't trying to reinvent the CX-5. And honestly, that's a good thing. The current one already turns heads without being loud about it. What stood out to me was how they've tucked the headlights in tighter, toward the grille, kind of like what Hyundai did with the Tucson. The back end has that same slim wraparound light treatment we're seeing on the bigger CX-70. It's got a longer body now, about 4 inches more, and you feel that presence, especially in the side profile. The fenders are still muscular and the belt line is still high. Mazda's Kodo design hasn't lost its rhythm. It's not flashy, but it's got a purpose. I've always appreciated how Mazda stays classy without looking like it's trying too hard, and this new CX-5 feels like a natural evolution of that design ethos. To be fair, riding any CX-5 always reminds me why Mazda is different. It's one of the few crossovers that actually makes you want to drive. That's why hearing Mazda's finally dropping a hybrid version into the 2026 model caught my attention. And the biggest deal here is that it's not borrowing from Toyota this time. Unlike the CX-50 hybrid, this one's being built in-house, which means Mazda's tuning it with their own driving feel in mind. We don't have final specs yet, and it's still unclear whether it'll be a standard hybrid or a plug-in, but I'm betting it won't feel dull behind the wheel. Mazda has also confirmed the new Skyactiv Z engine, which they say is cleaner and more efficient. Now that's not code for faster, but it should be more refined. The 2.5-liter gas engines we already know and love aren't going anywhere either. If you've driven the turbo model, you know it's got enough punch to make the daily commute a little more fun. All-wheel drive will still be an option, and rumor has it a new transmission might finally replace the old 6-speed. If this plays out right, it could be the perfect mix of brains and brawn. Also, I've always liked how the CX-5's cabin feels more like a cockpit than a budget SUV. Even after all these years, it still has that clean driver-focused layout that just works. But yeah, that small screen and old tech are overdue for an upgrade. From what I'm hearing and seeing, the 2026 model is going to fix that in a big way. Expect a bigger landscape-style infotainment screen, probably sitting high on the dash like in the CX-70. A fully digital gauge cluster is likely coming too, but thankfully Mazda doesn't seem interested in going full touchscreen for everything. They're keeping the real buttons, which I'm all for. The materials should feel even better this time around, with soft touch panels and top trims offering Nappa leather and ventilated seats. If Mazda nails this update, it's going to feel like a class above most of the competition without losing that driver-first feel. Moreover, one thing I've always respected about Mazda is they don't load their cars with tech just for the sake of it. When I drove the current CX-5, the features felt sharp and intentional, not buried in menus or overly complicated. With the 2026 model, Mazda is expected to crank it up a notch. The infotainment system is getting a serious upgrade with a bigger screen, wireless Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto, and probably the newest version of Mazda Connect. There's talk of a fully digital gauge cluster too, which should help modernize the cockpit without killing the old-school charm. On the safety side, you can bet things like adaptive cruise lane keeping, blind spot monitoring, and traffic sign recognition are coming standard. Higher trims might even get traffic jam assist and a surround view camera. It's looking like a tech package that's practical, well thought out, and still built around the driver. At the same time, there's a noticeable size bump stretching it about 4.3 inches longer than the outgoing model. That extra length may not sound like much, but in a compact SUV it can make a real difference when it comes to rear legroom and cargo capacity. While official interior specs haven't been confirmed yet, the longer wheelbase and extended rear overhang suggest a more spacious back seat and possibly a larger cargo area. This added space could help the CX-5 better compete with roomier rivals like the Honda CR-V and Hyundai Tucson. But even with the size increase, Mazda isn't expected to change the platform dramatically, so the CX-5 should maintain its familiar handling and proportions. It will still ride on a transverse layout, which means front-wheel drive stays standard. For families and commuters who always found the old CX-5 just a little tight, I really think this version might hit the sweet spot. Whenever I've shopped or test-driven Mazda crossovers, I've always felt like I was getting a lot for the money. The current CX-5 delivers a premium feel even in the lower trims without punching you in the wallet. For 2026, Mazda's likely sticking close to that formula. I'd expect the base model to stay just under $30,000, but with everything getting more expensive lately, don't be surprised if higher trims see a small bump. If they bring in a hybrid or plug-in version, you're probably looking at mid to high $30,000 territory depending on features. The trim should look pretty familiar. Maybe a 2.5S turbo signature again or something close. If they keep loading the higher trims with Nappa leather bigger wheels and all the tech goodies, it'll still be one of the better values out there. Now, I'm not meaning to brag, but I've driven just about every compact SUV out there, and the CX-5 has always stood out for how it feels behind the wheel. It's tight, smooth, and just plain enjoyable to drive. But now with the CX-50 in the mix, things get interesting. I've spent time in both, and while the CX-50 has that wider, more outdoorsy vibe, the CX-5 still feels more dialed in for city and highway cruising. Outside of Mazda, the competition's no joke. The CR-V is rock solid in terms of space and reliability. The Tucson and Sportage are packed with features, and Toyota's RAV4 continues to sell like crazy thanks to its hybrid efficiency. But here's the thing, most of those feel like appliances. The CX-5 still brings that extra layer of finesse that makes it feel special. If you care about how a car drives, not just what it does, the CX-5 earns its spot in the conversation. Based on everything I've been tracking, Mazda's gearing up to show off the 2026 CX-5 sometime late this summer, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it hitting showrooms early next year. That's usually how Mazda times their rollouts, and from what I've heard, the gas-powered models will probably land first. If you're holding out for the hybrid, you might have to wait a bit longer. It's likely coming later in 2026, possibly even as a 2027 model. Mazda's taking its time with this one since they're building the hybrid system in-house, instead of borrowing Toyotas like they did with the CX-50. That could be a good thing for folks like me who want a Mazda that still feels like a Mazda, even with some electrification in the mix. So if you're ready to trade in your old ride, mark your calendar, but keep an eye out for more updates closer to launch. From everything I've seen and dug into so far, the 2026 Mazda CX-5 looks like it's shaping up for drivers who want more than just another practical crossover. If you're the kind of person who values sharp handling, premium materials, and a driving experience that actually feels connected, this one should be on your radar. Mazda isn't chasing gimmicks or going full off-road. This is still a driver's SUV at heart. It won't be the biggest or most tech-loaded option out there, but it'll likely deliver where it counts. And with a hybrid in the pipeline, it's only getting more versatile.